Hi, shalom, shalom to the nation of Israel, shalom. All right, this is your brother Kazaki out of Great Millstone, New Orleans, coming at you with another lesson through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shem Shai, right? But prior to getting started, we want to give our infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Harachakadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the whole full elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? And the title of today's lesson is going to be Water is Spiritual Life, but the absence of water is spiritual death. All right. Again, the title of today's lesson is Water is Spiritual Life, but the absence of water is spiritual death. Okay. And right now, we have our people in a data state, not having a comforter, not having the spirit of Yahweh Shem Shai, working with them, building them up for JT, man. Okay, which is Jacob's trouble, which is vastly approaching and is right around the corner. Okay, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, the prophets, the elders and apostles at Great Millstone on down, the different brothers, okay, and Akim, out there, that have this word, that have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, this truth, man. Okay, they have spiritual water, man, spiritual life. Okay. They have Yahweh Shem Shai. He's in representation, of that water, okay? And he gives you what, knowledge, wisdom, understanding of the scriptures, the truth of the scriptures, okay? And we're going to kick it off here with John 8 and verse 32. And it says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, right? So whatever we've been free from, the lies, deception, okay? The things that we were taught when we were younger, right? The ways of the world, okay, and it no longer has a stronghold over us. Okay, we're able to maneuver and operate within the spirit, right? Okay, and these are some of the things that come with, basically having the truth and bearing the truth. Okay, the Lord has, opened our eyes to what, the spiritual understanding. And day by day, we're able to go in the scriptures and do what? We're able to drink the water, right? The word, all right? And it gives us spiritual life, right? And Yahweh Shem Shai gives us what? Again, an increase, right? So let me get this here precept first. Let's go. What is that? One chapter over, right? Go one chapter over. Bear with me. Alright, this is the point we want to get here. It says, this is John 7 and 38. He that believeth on me, as the scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Okay? And, we believe wholeheartedly, on the Lord, as the scripture says, man. So out of our mind is flowing what? That correct knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the scriptures, right? We've been given a mouthful of wisdom that no man can gainsay or resist, as the scriptures say. And right now, what? It's a beautiful thing, man. Because the one thing about the truth, it's hard to rebuttal, man. It's hard to rebuttal the truth, right? And people have, made up, wicked thoughts and vain imaginations, right, coming up against the truth. The scriptures teach you that, you can do nothing against the truth before the truth, man. All right? And if the council of the elders and apostles, right, the different brothers at Great Millstone on down, be true, right, what can you do, man? If the counsel is of God, then it's going to flourish, man. But if it's not of the Yahweh Shem Shai, right, it's going to come to naught, as the scriptures say, man. But right now, people are destitute, man, right? We have the parable, the dry bones, okay? But, right now, people are very dry, man. Okay, they're lacking the spirit. They're lacking the protection, right? They're really lacking their power, man. Okay, they've been disconnected, from their power source. Okay, what now is a time to reconnect with that power source, man. The Lord is giving out free, spiritual water here, man. And like in which you drink it, you gain the truth and you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? You begin to understand the prophecies, over the course of time, that is, the dark mysteries and the parables. Everything becomes clear, man, and it begins to make sense, right? You go from being dehydrated, okay, to basically hydrated, man. Okay, where the spirit is working optimally within you. Okay, let's go ahead and get this real quick. I want to believe this chapter here. Let's see here. Okay, this is Isaiah. I'll start at verse 1 real quick, and it says, Israel, the Lord's chosen. Okay, and it's Isaiah 44 and verse 1. It says, "Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, who I have chosen." Okay, so the Lord has chosen the Israelites. Okay, first and foremost, that never changed, man. Okay, the scriptures tell you that, I am the Lord, I change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob is not consumed, man. Okay, so the Lord doesn't change, then his words and the words within these scriptures, must stand true. All right, and it says, "Thus saith the Lord that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee." Right? So, what's a part of that help, man? Okay, that's spiritual protection, spiritual guidance, right? That's spiritual destitute, basically, what they would say in the world, a dead man walking, right? The scriptures teach you that he that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead, man. Spiritually destitute, man. Okay, our people are thirsty, right? As they say in the world, that person's thirsty, but it has a a negative connotation behind it because they want something fleshly. But the point is, that person is desirous, man. He wants something, or she wants something, right? This is what you should want. You should want the words of Yahweh Shema Shah. You should want the truth, man. Because, wanting this, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, okay, is what's going to bring us forward, to the kingdom, man. Matter of fact, I'll get this real quick. Just real quick. All right. This is Wisdom of Solomon 6 and verse 20. It says, "Therefore the desire of wisdom," okay, the desire of wisdom, right? And what's wisdom according to the scriptures, man? Okay, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Salakia, the law, statutes, and commandments, man. Okay, right? The scriptures tell you, says, this shall be our wisdom in the sight of the nations, man. And the people look and say, man, these people are wise people. They different. Like how they operate. What they doing. Let's try to be like them. Let's take some points from them, right? Let's worship, their power. Okay. And that stands true to this day, man. People still want to be like the Israelites, man. They still want to be like your so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American, Seminole Indian. Okay, man, woman, and child, man. Okay, but it says, "Therefore the desire of wisdom bring it to a kingdom," right? Okay, as the Lord wakes us up, right, gives us that spiritual water, right, give us that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Okay, and as we increase through the power of the Lord, You know, it brings us closer and closer to what, man? The end. Ultimately, because we all were spiritually dead, but now the Lord has given us basically life, man. You know, through the word, through the truth. Okay, let's get this one more verse. It says, if your delight be then in thrones and scepters, right? And not as it's not our light, it's not our desire in thrones and scepters, man. Okay, rulership, kingdom, dominion, right? Of course it is. All right, and it says, "O ye kings of the earth, O ye kings of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore," man. So give honor what honor is due, man. Okay, because the truth is, you know, precious. All right. Let's go back to that verse here. Yeah. All right. This Isaiah 44:2. It says, Thus saith the Lord that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. It says, for I will pour water upon him that is thirsty. Right? Okay, and you know, most of the brothers, or I'll just say some brothers, you know, within the truth, was desiring to know wisdom, man. Really, ultimately, right? You have brothers they call so-called, you know, they may call them in the world so-called conspiracy theorists, right? Who go around searching all these different avenues and different half-truths, so to speak, and things of that nature, right? Because they know the world is off, but they didn't know how to put it all together. But when they come across the truth, right, given that spiritual life through Yahweh Shema Shai, you know, coming back to the law, statutes, commandments, and drinking of this water, right, which is in representation of the word, and receiving Yahweh Shai, all right, you know, everything just makes sense. Everything clicks. Okay? You know, you begin to snap your fingers, say, this was it. This is what, you know, I should have been doing, or this is what we should have been doing, and this is the way to go. Okay? And it says, for I will pour out water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thy offspring. Right? You know, so you know, the Lord, you know, will bless, you know, the nation of Israel, you know, ultimately in a whole. You know, the scriptures tell you that all the people will be righteous, right? Everybody's going to know the Lord, you know. But right now, you need to come to these waters, man. Okay? Let me get this. I believe it's Isaiah 55, verse 1. Okay. Isaiah 55 and verse 1, it says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. Come on, man. Come to the waters. Come drink, man. Come learn the word. Come learn the word, man. Come learn about your power. Come learn the scriptures, man. Right? And it says, and he that have no money, come ye and buy and eat. Right? Same concept. Yeah, come buy wine and milk without money and without a price. Okay? You know? So, man, look, come and get these, come and get the word, man. Come get the truth, the understanding, why it's available. Because soon it's not going to be available. Right? Okay? So the brothers that's, you know, you know, getting this truth, they're getting the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know, if they endure to the end, you know, they're going to be all right. But the point is to flourish, man. All right? That's the whole point. You know? Now let's go and get this here. because these two gonna say the same thing. Let's get the Psalms one. I believe I brought this out yesterday, but it's all good. We'll get it again. Alright, this is Psalms 1 and verse 1. It says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly." Right? Your walk is, synonymous with your lifestyle, man. Okay? Your actions, the things you're doing. It says, "Nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful." Right? But it says, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doeth he meditate day and night." That's what we do. Right? Okay? The law is given an increase through the word, man, which is the water. And it takes what? Meditation in order to do so. Right? Your mind, your spirit will begin to think of things that you never thought of before. Because you're given a proper time to develop the spirit. Right? It's like the spirit's like a muscle, man. You got to constantly, you need to give the muscle a break, right? But you got to work that muscle out. All right? You got to exercise, exercise the spirit, man. So, when the time comes, to, lift that spiritual weight, okay, you'll be able to lift it, man. You'll be able to lift it with ease, right? You'll remember the breakdowns. You'll remember the precepts, right? Just follow your Yahawashi, man. Okay, which is the water, man. But see, these people that we read in a verse previously, the ungodly, they're spiritually dead, man, and extremely, what we would say extremely dry, man. They're lacking, the spirit, all the spiritual vitamins, minerals, nutrients. They don't have none of that, man. Okay? And let's get this here. Next verse, it says, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, and that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he do it, he shall prosper," right? Or whatsoever he do it shall prosper, okay? So this man, ways, he gonna be A-okay. According to the scriptures, he gonna be all right. Okay? Because his dwelling is within the Lord, man. All right? Like the scriptures say, he's a tree, right? And the scriptures tell you that men are as trees, all right? And that's planted by what? It said by rivers of water, man. Okay? Which is a representation of this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the truth. Right? He's constantly flourishing. He's growing. Right? And that's a beautiful thing to see. Right? You see a brother that comes into the truth. He's got the knowledge. Okay? The wisdom, the understanding. And guess what? Ultimately, you see that brother grow, man. The scriptures tell you Apollo's planted. I have scriptures say I have water. I think it says let me see. Salaki, I don't want to. Wait, that's go get that real quick. I don't want to butcher it. This is 1 Corinthians 3 and verse 6. It says, "I have planted, Apollo's water, but God giveth the increase," man. All right. So the elders and apostles, the different teachers, are here to give you that water, man. You need to be nourished. Okay? And that nourishment is what? Back to health, back to life. Because you're what? You're spiritually dead. You're spiritually dry, man. Whenever you take on the ways of the world, Esau's doctrine, his philosophies, anything pretty much other than the spirit, you're spiritually dead, man, and destitute and in need of help badly, right? or it's going to lead to an actual physical death by Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? And let's go back. We'll go back to that. We'll finish that off. All right. This is verse 4. It says, the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Right? And that reminds me of, let me get this real quick. Tie these precepts in. Start around verse 6. Start at verse 5, right? This is Jeremiah 17 and verse 5. It says, thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that put his trust in man, right? So we were just talking about, trusting in Esau's science, right? And his philosophies, all right? And anything that really has to do with the world in general, right? Because if you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy to the Lord. Remember that. Okay, and it says, and maketh flesh his arm, right? Putting your trust in man, putting your things in, instead of putting your things in immortality, okay, which is the scriptures, right? The knowledge, wisdom, understanding, the law, statutes, and commandments, all of that is forever, man. The word of the Lord will stand forever, okay? And it said, Salakia. It says, and whose heart departed from the Lord, right? Your mindset, right? Departs from the Lord, okay? Now you disconnect yourself from the power source, man, okay? And now you just a vessel, a vain vessel, man, okay? And it says, for he shall be like the heath in the desert. Basically, you're likened unto a desert plant, man. Okay, and the desert is what? It's dry, man. Okay, it's very dry. And our people are spiritually dry, right? Spiritually without the Lord, spiritually without the truth. Okay, they're destitute, as we said before. Okay, and it says, for he shall be like the heath in the desert, that plant, or basically, tumbleweed, that's heath too as well. And what do you see tumbleweed do, man? It's just, a dry ball of weeds or whatever, just, the wind just takes it away. It just rolls around the desert, And it says, and shall not see when good cometh, right? Because remember, if you're that tree planted by the rivers of living water, it said at the end of that verse, you will be prosperous, okay? But the ungodly, what shall be like the chaff of the wind, right? Okay. And it says, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land, and not inhabit it. So this is what happens. This is the end result of when you take on the ways of the world, man. When your walks, your lifestyle, and your paths are centered around what the world has to say instead of around what the Lord has to say, man. Instead of around what the word has to say. Okay? It says, blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. Okay? So we getting that opposite end of the spectrum, man. We just went through you people, that lack the water, which is, basically spiritually dead. Now we're going to get the people who isn't lacking the water, who has Yahweh Shema Shai, okay? And whose hope the Lord is. It's like it. And whose hope the Lord is. Okay? So same thing as before, pretty much. Right? And it says, for he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh. Okay? So this person is likened unto what? The tree planted by the rivers of living water, man. And that tree is going to flourish. It's going to grow. It's going to get all the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients. Okay? It's going to get everything that it needs in order to become a healthy tree, man. Because you could just be a dead, sick tree, man, where you don't grow any fruit, you're not growing any leaves, okay? The roots are dry, all right? And this is in representation of our people right now in today's time, you so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American, Seminole, Indian, man, woman, and child, all right? You're spiritually dry, man, okay? You're that tree that can't grow any fruit, right? That tree that can't even grow leaves, right? You just a dry tree with dry roots, man. You need that water, right? Which is a representation of the word, man. Okay? And it says, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. All right? So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. The title of today's lesson was, look, water is spiritual life, man. So drink that water, man. You need it, daily. We all need it, okay? You're feeling dehydrated. You're feeling down and out a little bit in the spirit, right? Go ahead and drink the water, man, and get rehydrated, But again, the title of today's lesson is Water is Spiritual Life, but the absence of water is spiritual death, okay? So, like I said, Jake, get with the program. Get that spiritual life, which is the water, which is the word, man. All right? But yeah, like I said, that's all I have through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying first and foremost to the hopeful elect. But prior to getting out of here, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ar-Chakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone, rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? Kwam Yasha Allah, Ababa Ball, and Shalom.